let's wrap up a little of the real estate stuff. And we'll do kind of weave into review items as we go. Final exam is going to be part short answer, which is worth about 33% of your overall grade. The final exam itself is worth 25% of your overall grade. It's comprehensive, covering all the material. And there's about 100 questions of multiple choice, true, false, matching-ish. That's kind of similar to your quiz and test that you guys have been doing from each chapter. That style of questions. Those you'll get through pretty fast. And then the short answer. So break down as 2/3 the multiple choice, true, false type stuff, and 1/3 of short answer. So, all right, let's wrap up. For starters, this investments. So I'm going to pass out a sheet here that has. Big one. So we're going to analyze the benefits of leverage. So I kind of saved this for the very last thing because what is baby step number 2? Pay off all debt. And baby step number 6, pay off your mortgage, pay off your house. So that's kind of this last chapter. And so basically living a debt-free life, and Dave in his stuff has continued on to say that for businesses too. And this is where I probably disagree with them the most, and I'm going to kind of try to explain why. That for a business or investments, you can, I think, use debt pretty safely as long as you don't use too much of it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but that is my feelings on it, and I'll explain why as we go through this. Let's see here. So I've got in front of you a hypothetical portfolio of investments that, let's see what investments. Presentations. There we go. So I have the actual Excel spreadsheet that what you have in front of you was generated from. So at the top, you've got a description. Let's say that you've got $100,000 to invest. You are at least at baby step number 6. So you're at, I shouldn't say it that way. You could be at baby step number 4, saving 15% of your income, and working your way on the other steps. The other steps kind of go in concert with each other. If you're 15% of your income going for retirement, a college fund, paying off your house, all of that can kind of be done simultaneously with the baby steps. Once you get past that emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses in baby step number 3. So suppose you get to a point in your life where, I'd like to get into some real estate. And you've got, I don't know, let's say you've got $400,000 in your mutual funds right now or whatever, and you want to use $100,000 to get into some real estate. And so the question is, what should I buy? And so what I've got here hypothetically is the option of investing in one single house, which is what Dave Ramsey might be advising, at least on the books, the way he does it. That would be buying real estate with 100% down. Right? So you go buy one single duplex or investment property, maybe it's a single family house for $100,000 versus buying 2 of them. So buying 2 houses, and each one has a $50,000 mortgage on it, right? So you get what I'm doing here? You got $100,000. You either buy 2 with $50,000 down and a $50,000 loan, or asset A is just buying 1 house with putting all $100,000 into 1 house. So we call taking on some debt in the business is leverage. So with 50% down and a $50,000 loan, you're 50% leveraged into each one of those assets. And then overall, you've got $200,000 worth of house and $100,000 worth of loan, and you're $100,000 in. Has anybody got any questions about the setup so far? So it's kind of like the home equity that I brought you through on Tuesday, right? Your equity that with the house we did was $16,000 down. Well, now we have $100,000 down, but we're buying rental property. All right, let's assume that you can get a loan at 8%, which is actually pretty high in today's world, as we saw, but that's okay as long as we have it set for each one. It only gets more favorable if we change that, and we can change it. So then down here I have the flows. So what were the 3 phases? If you got your notes out from Tuesday, what were the 3 phases of the investment that I walked you guys through? 3 phases for any investment that you're trying to analyze. So time period 0, 1, 2, 3. So maybe we hold it 4 years. What was the first phase? It wasn't the first phase.
The initial investment.
The initial investment. How much are you cashing out or putting into it? So the initial investment was II. And then over time, what are we doing, Josh? The operating flows, yes. Operating flow. And then at the end,
Terminal cash
the
flow.
3rd phase is the terminal cash flow. So I put money in, something happens with money while I hold it, and then when I sell it. That's all it is, right? Buy, hold, sell. So it's kind of similar to what I walked you through with the Chapter 11 material with Roth IRAs and other things on the taxing. So now what I'm doing here then is looking at the operating flows. So we're going to rent out our house for $1,000 a month. So our single family house, we're going to have $1,000 a month. We don't have any principal and interest because we don't have any loan, right? But we still have taxes and insurance and some other things. So I just have other expenses here. So if you wanted to write on your paper, you can put taxes and insurance and repairs and maintenance or whatever. We're just going to say that that's $2,000 for this house. So if I look at my profit for the year, I rented it out for $1,000 a month. I had $2,000 of expenses. I got $10,000 bucks, right? So in terms of my operating flows, each year I'm earning $10,000 in my hand off of my $100,000 investment. What would that rate of return be roughly? I say roughly just because of assuming there's not other things going on. But if you have $10,000 in your hand after buying a house, and you put $100,000 into the house as your initial investment, what is your rate of return? If you gave up $100,000 today, and then you're up $10,000 the first year, what was your rate of return the first year? 10%, right? You earned 10% on your $100,000 bucks. You earned 10%. And so this is now going to be a comparison to, I put my money in a mutual fund. And what did the mutual fund value go up by, right? So we're thinking of rates of return. This is another way to add diversification to your portfolio. We have a well-diversified portfolio of mutual funds and stocks around the world. So I own thousands of stocks through my mutual fund holdings. And now I'm choosing to diversify even a little bit further, getting involved with real estate. All right, so questions on that so far? So now, for the 2 houses, I've got the same scenario going on. We're getting $1,000 for each house. Each house has the same thing here with the $2,000 of expenses. But now I've got a principal and interest payment for the loan. So I'm going to have some expense of an outflow of cash. Part of that is my principal, which what was principal again? What you're paying off the loan, right? So it's the portion of your loan payment. It always has principal and interest. Interest is the bank's money. Principal is really your money that's reducing the amount you owe to the bank, right? So that kind of works to your benefit, and that's included in both of this that we'll will break out here in a bit as we try to unpack this. So now each duplex is paying almost $8,000 in cash using the bank's money, which then means for the, I'm calling it the portfolio of 2 houses, right? So the diversified houses, I allow there to be up to 5 houses doing this. We have about 16,000 in hand. So now if with 16,000 in hand, what is my approximate rate of return? 16% instead of 10%. Right? So pretty big jump. What have we been saying that we should expect to get in the stock market off our mutual funds for long-term planning? What range of percent? 10 to 12, 8 to 12 might even be, if you wanted to be a little more conservative again, as you guys do your own financial planning, you kind of pick that, like, oh, I want to be a little more conservative and just assume that we get 8% instead of 12%. You're still putting your money in the same place. It's just what your assumption is on how much it'll grow by. So somewhere between that, we've been using 10% a lot, but now we get this bump up. So why are we getting a bump up? This is a little bit tougher question, but I want you guys to see this right away. How can we, through buying one asset, have only 10,000, but with 2, we have 16? Where is the benefit coming from? It's not diversification in this particular case, because we're kind of holding risk constant here. So that, and we're assuming that they perform the best. Now, let me add on to Hannah. So Hannah said diversification, which is a good go-to thing. You are diversifying, that's true. What you're hedging against is this: if this loser doesn't pay his rent, then you've lost that year. But if only one loser does it here, you still are getting this rent coming in. So that's kind of the power of diversification with holding a few different properties, is that if one goes down, it's not taking the whole thing down. So that it is applicable here, but just not with what I'm looking for in terms of why this turns into 16 cash in my hand versus 10 cash. Whose cash are we using in addition to our own 100? The bank's. What are we paying the bank? How much? What level of interest? What's our loan rate? 8% is what we're paying the bank. What is the underlying asset generating? 10,000 or 10%, right? So here's what we're doing kind of is we're able to buy 2 assets that are generating a 10% return using the bank's money at 8%, so you're getting a free 2% bump. But you're getting that free 2% on both. The way that works, it doesn't sum up to be, exactly the 2% like I'm explaining, but that's what you're doing is you're leveraging in, you're using cheaper money to buy an asset that's earning more. Okay, questions on that? Now, Dave does not, and Russ, both will not recommend that you take a credit card deal. Well, Russ, I can get a credit card, I can get a long-term loan, or I can get a home equity loan. That's even better. That is a 5% payment to my bank. I'm going to go buy a piece of real estate with it, right? So don't leverage your personal life to get into it. You're dealing with your investment money now. So that, make sure we're clear on that. Because a lot of people make that mistake. Well, I'm just going to get a home equity loan on my house at 5%, and then I'm going to do what you're saying. The problem with that is if the market goes down, you go down too on a personal level. Whereas this, it's just your income might go down from your investments a little. You can ride out that storm better if you don't have your personal money wrapped in, and now you're worried about foreclosure on your personal house and your life is a wreck, right? So I'm still in total agreement with Dave Ramsey on all that stuff, but get into a little bit of leverage here. We're going to see the benefits coming down. So I'm. Yeah, what's that? We're going to do that today. Yep. All right. So, and this is part of the final too. So, I mean, this is investment stuff in general. All right. So here, we've got the 16. So now we can kind of look at the different ways that we make money. So if we think of the cash on cash investment, that's the 16 versus the 10, but there's more going on with it too. Over the years that you hold the loan, your principal portion was $2,000 each year. So you were paying down your debt by 2. So the graph I gave you on the other day was, this one is applicable here. So if you've got your, you guys have it in your notes already, the 16,000, and then you're paying down your debt and you're appreciating the house. So you have appreciation and you have debt reduction. That's happening over time. That's building up your equity, right? This is the picture. I'm being kind of sloppy here because you guys have it in your notes already. I just want to reference back. So you're building up your wealth over time as you hold the real estate. So now we're going to pick out those pieces here. And if we do that, we've got, if we assume that real estate climbs in value by 3% per year, with the 100% down, you gain $3,000. You bought a $100,000 house, now it's worth $103,000. But when you buy 2 houses, you gain 6. Right? So you're getting a double dip on the appreciation when you have assets 1 and 2. And then we can look at your total return here in terms of cash flow, operating flows over time, which was what the piece we just picked up. And then you've got the appreciation and debt reduction being done at the end. And this is what real estate pulls off with 2 houses rather than 1. Now you start plugging 24% into your financial calculator, and what happens to the value of your retirement nest egg? I mean, it exploded when you guys did exercises at like 15%, right? So even if this real estate only pays off 15%, again, I'm not saying put all your eggs into real estate, but real estate can be a really good place to put some money, especially since a handful of you raised your hands on maybe wanting to get involved with real estate at some point in time. It can be a fabulous thing to do. And my last thing that I'll comment on is that if you stay at, my rule of thumb now that I've gone through the financial crisis and lost a lot of money in real estate, I made a lot of money in real estate too, so I've done both, but is to not take a leverage position of more than 60%. So if you buy a rental house, make sure you've got at least 40,000 of your own money. Here, this analysis I went through with 50% just to show you the dramatic difference in your rate of return. And why is that good? Well, if in the financial crisis, real estate prices took a 20–30% downturn, so your $100,000 house now became only worth $70,000, right? Now, it wasn't going to stay that way forever. It was probably going to get back to being worth 120 once we've ridden out the ups and downs of the market, right? So your $100,000 house becomes a $70,000 house, but if you still only have a $60,000 loan, you're still good, right? You're not upside down. Whereas if you have a 90% loan, which a lot of people do that get into rental properties, myself included in certain circumstances. So you have a 90% loan, a $90,000 loan on a $100,000 house, and now the $100,000 house becomes worth $80,000 or $70,000. You are upside down on it, and you have to come up with some cash to make the banker happy. How much cash is flowing during a financial crisis? None. You can't get cash like you used to be able to do. And so then that is kind of the problem that a lot of real estate developers and people involved in investment property fell into during that time if you were leveraged a little too thin. So my new rule is 60%, don't get more than a 60% loan basically, and you can pretty much ride out anything. I don't think you'll have any problems with your real estate holdings if you keep it at that no more than that 60% level. Questions? Yeah, Abby?
So I guess I was confused, like at the beginning, actually, but so I thought you were saying you're taking it out of your investments already, the money. Or are you saying that you were taking it out along to like for
You could take it out as long as there wasn't a penalty. If you had the the ones that were either IRA or Roth IRA, I would not take it out to put that in real estate. So this would have been money that would have been outside of the Roth or IRAs, or you've saved up over time, like maybe you decided, I really want to get into real estate, and so now I'm going to start saving money outside of a Roth to do the investment.
Okay. And then what is amortization?
Amortization is the debt reduction.
Okay.
So that literally means to kill off debt is amortization right here. So the amortization is the length of your loan. I'm going to kill off the debt in 20 years. Yep. And it's called those tables that we looked at that shows the principal and interest. Those are called amortization tables. So that's the word we use with loan payoff stuff. Okay, any other questions? All right, so let's do some review. Test. Burn up some ink here. You guys hear about that weird with that? That was this last night. Yeah, that happened with the tornado warning thing. That was a big mess up nationwide, and some people said that it was a warning or not a warning, but what am I trying to say? False alarm, not false alarm, but a test. Some people said it was a test, but other people didn't. Mine didn't. I looked at mine later, so that's kind of all right. Baby steps. Probably the first thing to start off. You do have to have these memorized for the test. Baby steps. Number one is what? Emergency fund. Not good enough. You're going to miss some points on the test if that's all you write. $1,000 emergency fund. And for the test, you're going to have the full enchilada. Less than 20,000. Good. So 500 if your income is less than $20,000 per year. Otherwise, we're going to save up a $1,000 emergency fund because emergencies are going to happen, and your old method of putting it on your credit card or having a fallback is going to kind of blow up your whole road to financial peace if you don't have some money of your own saved up. Number two, debt snowball. I want more information than that. So debt snowball is a technique that you use that you should know for the final as well, by the way. And I'll cover that a little bit separately.
Yeah.
So the debt snowball is a technique that we use to do what?
Pay off all debt.
Pay off all debt.
You want to put the exception mortgage?
I do. So pay off all debt except for your house or your mortgage. Either one would be acceptable. So as an aside, since Hannah brought it up, I'm going to put debt snowball over here just as a reminder to talk about it. I kind of want to walk through all these first. Number 3, 3 to 6 months of expenses. 3 to 6 months of expenses. What? That's not good enough. That's going to miss you some points if you just do that. For emergency fund, which is your fully funded emergency. So 3 to 6 months of expenses as emergency fund. So you basically beefed up what we did in number 1 is going from 1,000 to now 3 to 6 months of expenses. We wanted to do all of our efforts into being gazelle intense at paying off all of our debts before we beefed up this. Right? So we wanted to get out of debt as quick as possible, gazelle intensity, and get that emergency fund beefed up. So if you got yourself just to this point, to maybe step number 3, and you were living your life with 3 to 6 months of emergency fund, and you had no debt, you're well ahead of most Americans. Just with right here, right? Think of what life looks like. You don't have any student loans. You don't have anything. Your income is all your own. For a lot of you, I think this is hard to visualize. When you saw who was in the audience of Dave's presentations, there were a lot of people in my age or in their 30s or late 20s. They started off, they graduated from OU, they got married, they got car debt, they got student loan debt, they bought a house. And right now they're like, oh my gosh, all of my money is going towards all the stuff that we thought we needed when we graduated in order to be a part of the American dream, right? And your dream doesn't have to look that way. Your dream can look a lot better if you just have a little patience. That's really what the system ultimately overarching is about, is just having some patience. When you're 24 and just got married, you don't have to have a house, You don't have to have a new $30,000, $40,000 car unless you can pay cash for it. And so you start living that way and you start feeling the freedom that maybe some of your other friends don't have because they did more of the traditional route. Okay, so once we get to this level, we're on this last part that we talked about, these last chapter 10 and 11. And what is it? 15% of your income towards retirement. So this is kind of long-term planning. So 15% of your income going towards retirement. We did all of our retirement planning tools. I want to retire at age whatever. How do I get there? How do I get to a point where my investments are paying more than my job? Right? That was skimming the cream off the top. If I get up to $1 million and my investments are paying off 10%, that gives me $100,000 to live on. I don't even have to work anymore, right? So that was the whole retirement game of kind of timing things out. Okay, and then number 5. So I said 4, 5, 6, and 7, once you get up to this level, they're kind of working together simultaneously. What was number 5? College fund. College fund for kids. If you want to do more college, you might be budgeting for more college somewhere else, right? You might have been doing that your whole time. If you get done with OU and maybe you do 6 months to a year worth of work, and you're like, I kind of want to get my MBA, or I kind of want to get a master's degree in whatever. You can be budgeting for that even up here, even if you're not to this 15% level. You might be able to, find some grant money. We're back to kind of like being in school like you guys are now, right? So really, this one is directed towards kids. If you want to have kids, or you think, might be a possibility in the future, you can. And number 6, pay off the house. Almost anti-American at this point. There are people who go into house debt at age 75 because they think that would be a good idea and they need some money for something or other, for a new car. So it is possible. They do give loans, by the way, to 75-year-olds. So, which almost sounds crazy. You're going to give a 30-year loan to a 75-year-old. But what would the bank require? Not necessarily cosign. You're right. That would be an idea if you had a cosigner, but probably not the first thing the banker would look for. What kind of down payment do they want? A big one or a small one if you're 75 getting a 30-year loan? A big one. So basically the idea is if you put 20% down on a $100,000 house again, you've got $80,000 worth of debt, you die a couple of years later, the banker just puts it on the market, and the banker now knows that 2 years later, your $100,000 house is probably worth 106, as long as there isn't some abnormal thing. You had paid off your debt down to 78,000, and so now the banker has this kind of cushion in case you die. So not a big deal. The banker will still give you a 30-year loan if you're 75 years old. It's just part of the processing of the mortgage. Okay, and number 7. Life is good. Build wealth and give. And as we discussed, the giving part is there all along with doing your budget. Really, building wealth is there all along, right? I mean, are you building, let me just ask you guys, if you're at baby step number 2, are you building wealth? Yeah, right? Remember, wealth is what? So this will lead me on, I'll get to the snowball question here again. So you do have to know this for the final. Your wealth is equal to what equation? How would we write that? What you own minus what you owe. So the dollar value, and I'd like you to put dollar value of what you own. So you add up, we did that worksheet way back in week 1 or 2, where we took all of our assets, the dollar value of all of our assets. Now, as you get closer to retirement, if you're at baby step number 4, our assets now include some mutual funds, maybe a paid off car, right? Maybe some real estate that you've invested in. So that is the dollar value of what we own minus the dollar value of what we owe. If we have any debts. And so now, if you're kind of following the Russ McCullough suggestion and you decide that you're willing to take on some debt, you might be all the way at baby step number 6 and have a little bit of investment debt. Then that would be long on that side of the equation. So you'd have your $200,000 worth of houses here and your $100,000 worth of debt, you're still $100,000 to the good, right? And hopefully that good will grow like this over time, and you get a 24% rate of return on some of your investments, I think. Okay, so that's our wealth equation. So let's see, let's work on the debt snowball since that's up there. So debt snowball. So this was a technique to pay off all debt, which is baby step number 2. What do you do? What do you do to do the debt snowball? What's the first thing you do?
So you just list out all of your like.
List out all your debts, good.
From highest interest.
Okay, so let me put out here. List out all debts. And then I'm going to put as number 2, there was a specific thing to the order, which is where Austin was going. Taylor, I saw your hand first. Smallest amount owed to biggest. We're actually ignoring the interest rate with this, which is a little, by the way, you'll listen to other financial gurus who would say, pay off your highest interest rate first. So Dave Ramsey is a little bit different with this in that we're going to order them from lowest debt to highest debt. So let's put that down here. Order debts from lowest to highest balance owed. And I'll just put on here parentheses, not interest rate. And again, other financial people might tell you to do differently, because it is true that if you start really paying your high interest rate one first, you are kind of earning a little bit more faster. So that part's true. So now, why does Dave recommend this way?
Because from your smallest one, you can keep putting the money that you're putting in your smaller one into the bigger one.
Okay, good. And it gives you kind of those early victories, right? So you're like, oh, okay, I get it, because you're gonna, once you have a smaller balance, you're gonna be able to pay those off quicker. So it gives you a little. Remember, he thinks personal finance is 80% action or behavior, 80% behavior or action, and 20% financial knowledge. Like, I know how to calculate it, use a calculator and do interest rates, and I know how to order my debts from lowest to highest or whatever. Kind of thinking through that stuff is not as important as the behavioral part. And so his argument that I agree with is that you're going to be, if you're really gazelle intense about paying off your debts, you're going to pay them off so quickly that the interest savings that you would have got by doing it this way is very small, very negligible. And it's more important to give you some early victories, because if you have a list of even 7 things, so if you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that can look a little intimidating, right? But if all of a sudden within 3 or 4 months, we're able to knock off number one, 2, and 3. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I'm down to this. And now I'm putting, as Abby was saying, these payments are now going towards this one. So we order it from the balance, and then step number 3, which I'll come back to my number here, but step number 3 is to pay the fixed amount. Pay the total amount of all payments until all balances are 0. I'll kind of use my analogy here, just make up some numbers, make sure this is crystal clear for you guys. So this one was $100 a month. This debt was only $60 a month, so this is per month. Or this is the minimum monthly payment. And then if you're gazelle intense, you might be able to do more. This one's $200 a month, and then I won't even go much further than this, but let's just say this is $310 per month. So if we get to the point where 1, 2, and 3 are paid off, this is why he calls it the snowball, is that you were paying all of the minimum payments, but as soon as this debt's paid off, you're going to put that 100 towards this payment. So you're really going to be now doing 160 per month for this payment, which is going to knock it out really quick, right? And then once you pay off this debt, then you're going to put that whole 160 into this one, and instead of paying 200, you're going to pay $360 per month. That's the snowball. So you're always paying, if we totaled up the total amount of all payments, if I totaled all 7 of these, and this turned out to be $890, you're going to continue to pay $890 all the way through building up the snowball. So your final bill down here for item number 7, if that was whatever it was, you're going to be paying $890 on that last one. And maybe the minimum monthly payment was only $200. And so now you're really paying that one off quickly. Does anybody got any questions there? That's the debt snowball technique to baby step number 2. Good? All right. Let's see here. The biggie is the zero-based budget. If you start listening to Dave Ramsey's show, the zero-based budget is usually the most frequently commented thing that led them to their financial success. The zero-based budget. What is that equation? You need to know this for the final. What is a zero-based budget? Every dollar has a name. Okay, good. So what's going to equal 0? Hannah, give me a number between 3 and 8. 1, 2, 3. Michael, what is the equation? Every dollar has a name, Hannah says, which is true. So give me an equation that helps us think about the 0. Why is it called a zero-based budget?
Because after a certain amount of time, all like your income, you're gonna use all you give all your dollars names, so all that income that you get, you plan to spend it with
Good.
in different areas.
Okay, good. So if all of your spending, so is this windshield work or rear view mirror work? Remember that lecture from 7 weeks ago? Is zero-based budget windshield work or rear view mirror work?
It's windshield.
Windshield work. What do I mean by that? It's your future. You're planning ahead. The zero-based budget is not an accounting exercise where you're adding up all the receipts at the end of the month and saying, oh, where did my money go? I don't know. And you're adding them up, trying to do something. It is windshield work, so you're moving forward with it. So zero-based budget is windshield work. In that you are focusing on income and spending that is ahead of you in the future. So the equation is, I'm going to take all of my expected income, so actual or expected income or inflow. I'll put inflow because you can do this even if you're not working. If you don't have a job, you still have inflow coming from somewhere. Even if that inflow is a student loan, right? You still have an inflow of cash that you should be planning for. So the actual or expected inflow of money minus the planned spending. Let's put Hannah's comment there of every dollar has a name. If all of these actual or expected dollars has a name, then this equation of income minus inflow minus outflow equals 0. So that's your budgeting exercise that you did with the Excel sheet. That's what we've been doing the whole time since we got it introduced in chapter 2, I think it was. So every dollar's got a name. You can keep it real simple. It's your budget. If you don't like something that you're spending money on, you can change it. Okay, so when you do your budget, what was a technique that might help you work through the month? There was a technique that we used in the budgeting section. So, technique to help budgeting and spending through the month. What did we use? Okay, somebody say something? Brave? Taylor? Did you say something? I didn't hear.
No.
Envelope system, awesome, good. So the envelope system is a technique that you can use. And I showed you my envelope system, right? That was always the tabs in my wallet that when I have cash, here's all the cash in my wallet, right? I'm just showing you that I really do this, right? This has worked so great. House, blow, family blow, and food. There's my envelope, right? So you use that. Why was the envelope system so powerful as you move through the month in regard to your spending? Say that again? Explain spending, okay? So it helps you see your spending, right? What else does it do if you run out of something? If I run out of food money, all of a sudden I go to the store and this one is empty.
Looks like you're not getting any food.
Yeah, no food. Or I can pull from somewhere else. That's the most powerful part of this, is that I know I'm not spending my rent money to buy that pizza. I know that I'm not spending my money that I save for electricity to buy that pizza. But if I look and I say, oh man, I was kind of saving my blow money for some new fishing equipment, but that pizza looks pretty good, I can sacrifice $20 for that pizza, and I still have enough money to probably buy my fishing poles and rods and reels, right? You see how you're visually making that? It makes a difference when you can see it right there, and you can buy the food or you cannot buy the food. Very powerful. With a zero-based budget and envelopes, you can kind of make some real educated choices with your spending. You can still buy the stuff, so the purpose of the budget is not to constrain you, other than to constrain you from doing something stupid, which is spending money you don't have. That's all it's doing, right? It's helping you keep you from spending money that you don't have. All right, so let's write some of that down here. So the envelope system, so let's define it first. Keep parts of your planned spending in, I'm going to put in quotes here, envelopes, because obviously it does not have to be physical envelopes. There are apps for bank balance. I saw a student, I haven't ever used this myself, but apps for, let's call it digital envelopes. And then you can put Russ uses Post-it notes with names. So with the app, it was pretty cool if that's what you wanted to do, and you could keep it on a number of things, but you pull out your phone, and it's just like me pulling out my wallet, right? I've got those 4 categories that I can visually see. Now I've got those 4 spending categories on my phone, and I can choose to use one or the other, and the bank balance is going to go down or shift the money around. Okay. Let's see. And then let's put why this is an important thing. Helps to keep you from spending money you don't have. And that's true of the zero-based budget as well. But then my last bullet is allowing you to see. Allows you to see where you might reallocate or stop spending. Okay, so questions or comments there? That's a lot of the meat and potatoes. All right, so let's see. We did savings. The other thing we did was the sinking fund related to the budget. So sinking fund technique. Anybody remember what the sinking fund was? He, just to help you out, he used the example of like if you buy investment property, which now we've been through that chapter, and you have a roof that you think you're going to need to replace in the next 5 to 10 years. So businesses do this a lot. What might you start to do today if you think a roof that's going to be a $10,000 item is going to fail in possibly 5 years? Just put some money aside. So the sinking fund was just taking the $10,000 roof, and each year for the next 5 years, I'm going to save some money for the roof. So it's a $10,000 roof over the next 5 years. 10,000 divided by 5 means I'm going to save $2,000 per year, and then by the time 5 years comes up, I've got enough money for the roof. So you guys can do that for a computer or something else. So sinking fund is a technique for saving money out of your budget for an upcoming purchase. So example, you need a new computer next year that costs $1,200. Then you need to savings per month is equal to the $1,200 computer divided by 12 equals $100 per month. That can go into an envelope. So now we'll start to see how that can kind of work together with this plan. When you do your zero-based budget, one of your planned spending categories is the savings for the computer. And so when I get my paycheck, I take $100 and I shove it into an envelope that I keep in my underwear drawer or whatever, or put it into your bank and do the breakdown of savings, have your savings account broke down into different pieces. Okay, so what is so he brings up this because what is the normal American way to get that new computer that you don't have money for today? Use a credit card. Yeah, right. So we're just trying to kind of, call to people's attention that this is the old-fashioned way when people have patience instead of working their lives around a budget. You start to have a little bit longer-term planning horizon. I don't know if you guys have thought about that, but if you really start to embrace these techniques, it's not like, well, Russ, what if I need a computer today? Well, if you've kind of been doing this for the last 2 years, the computer that you need today, you had already saved for 2 years ago, right? And so all of a sudden your planning horizon becomes a lot bigger. Whereas way too many Americans, the planning horizon is today. How do I get through today? How do I get through next week? How do I get through this term, right? If we're talking about the semester or something. So our whole life is kind of running around with this short planning horizon. And therefore, without a plan, money comes in, money goes out, and sometimes goes out more than the money that actually came in because you want it. And so this planning horizon just kind of helps you work through things. What was the other benefit that kind of ties in some other material of not using a credit card? What else might you do to possibly save money, maybe even on this computer? Use cash, right? So now we get into the kind of the other techniques of using cash, having some patience. So this kind of rolls in to other benefits of waiting. So use cash and get better deal. So that gets into our negotiating chapter. What were some of the techniques that we had besides using cash? Anybody remember? Walkaway power, good. So we also have maybe some walkaway power when we are patient. What else was a few? We don't have to list them all here, but walkaway power. Silence, shut up, right? So shut up. That was kind of related to my he who speaks first loses as part of those. So we use cash, we got walkaway power. We might sleep on it for the night, which is kind of a little bit related to walkaway power, but it was a little bit different. So all of that stuff can help you get a better deal on your purchases. What else could you do in terms of how you buy the computer? Where might yes, negotiate for sure. Where might you get a really good deal? On the marketplace, flea markets. So those alternative places that we might not have thought of when you are buying on credit, you might not be able to buy it from a personal person who's got it listed on Craigslist or on Facebook Marketplace or something, right? Because they don't accept credit cards. Now, granted, with Venmo is not credit card, but you know, you might be able to use PayPal credit or something else possible with today's technology, but you might be losing out on some other benefits. So another technique that we did is looking for bargains. Looking for bargains. So we got the flea market, Craigslist, and eBay, and Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace. All kind of for sale by owner. Garage sales are awesome place to get deals. Secondhand store, so Goodwill, Salvation Army, other places. A lot of rich people donate stuff that they haven't really used that you can pick up for $4. A shirt that was normally $60. Okay, so all of that stuff can help you out. Let's see, I'm going to jump down to credit bureaus, which is going to tie into insurance. So in our credit score stuff, what was some of the things we need to be aware of as it relates to our credit? What is the credit score? How does it get calculated? Or what do you need to do to build your credit? Pay your bills, yes, but you have to pay specific types of bills. Debt, right? It's debt bills. That's really how credit scores are related to each other. So, this was chapter 8. So credit score. This is really a debt score. You must go into debt to get it. It is not needed for people who live debt free. So when somebody tells you you got to build up your credit, you can tell them, no, you don't. You can honestly tell them, no, you don't. Are they? Oh yeah, no, it's very common. I wouldn't doubt it. Lots of people out there, have the mentality. And the reason they have that mentality is because they're not doing the Dave Ramsey system. So I really have to tell you, to be fair, personal finance can look differently. If you take this class, personal finance, from a different place, you're going to get how to manage your debt, and you can borrow money on your credit card and use it to buy Robinhood stock and make money or whatever. So that would be really stupid. I hopefully no personal finance test really would do that. But nonetheless, it's kind of like how to manage debt class. That's one of the reasons I really like the Dave Ramsey system, because I know as well as I'm sitting here for the last 9 years I've been teaching this, that if I teach you how to manage your debt class, that's just going to keep you very normal and probably poor. Because the bottom line is it's 80% behavior. You're not going to manage your debt well. So if we take this approach of don't do debt, debt is dumb, and some of you I know are going to slip into debt, but you're going to hopefully remember back to, oh, that's why Russ said don't do debt. Look at this late fee, honey. We have a $35 late fee, and why are we buying that car, right? And so then you buy the car and ends aren't meeting. You start fighting with your significant other, and before you know it, you're like, oh yeah, what did McCullough say? Oh yeah, let me dust out this note here. What does it say? Oh, don't do debt. That's not a bad way to live your life, right? And here's the baby steps and all of that stuff. So I really think it's the smartest way to move forward, and you don't need that debt score to do it. So even with your if you guys have some student loan debt or whatever, you're going to still have a credit score potentially. So we don't want to trash your credit score. That's not the point of this. But when you buy a house, you're going to have other ways to support it. So there are my last bullet for this is there are other ways to prove you are financially responsible, because that's what the debt score is trying to do, is to show, oh, you're financially responsible, and so we have a computer, and the computer compiles all this information. But there's other things you can do. What can you do? Pay your rent on time. Your landlord gives you a good reference because you always paid on the first. Cell phone bills. Utility bills. None of this shows up on your credit report unless you've got a judgment against it. But when you go to apply for a mortgage, since a mortgage is okay with this system, you're debt-free. You've got how much down on the house payment that or the house chapter we just, what's the minimum payment that Dave recommends? 10%. So you go to a banker and say, hello, here's my thing. I don't have any credit score because I don't do debt. I'm debt-free. My spouse and I are making $100,000 a year, and I have $10,000. I have 10% to put down on this $200,000 house, $20,000 down payment. And here's my record of my current landlord and all that. You know, what do you think? What's the banker going to say all day long? I promise you. I did so many loans over time, and as a realtor, you are golden. You look wonderful to the banker compared to the person who has a high credit score, but revolving debt of X amount and car payments and whatever. You actually look better to them. So don't buy into that myth. Okay, chapter 9 is our insurance chapter. So we went through different forms. So one of them, I'm not going to take them in order here the way we had them in the chapter, but identity theft insurance. You can have an insurance policy that helps protect your credit and helps protect your finance. It's more than your credit or your credit score, by the way. It's problems that you could have if somebody does steal your identity. And so identity theft insurance was one of those things you could get. And then we have the normal kind of auto, health, and life insurance. And then we got disability, long-term care, and other things. I just kind of want to pause on these because a lot of these elements are the same. And there's pieces of those puzzle that we did those exercises in class and some of your homework. And that was the financial pieces that you should know for the final here. So what was the premium? With all of these forms of insurance, you're going to pay a premium. What was that financial payment covering, or what is it? More than just upfront. It's what you sign up for upfront. A premium. You definitely pay it upfront though too. Sometimes you got to pay a little bit more upfront, but that's usually just if there's something with the months. Yes, and you're getting like more detail than what I'm even looking for, but you're right. The insurance company's taking on the risk of you having an accident, getting sick, getting cancer, or dying, right? They're taking on that risk. They're going to pay you some money out. And in order to buy that, to transfer that risk, each month you pay right? So that's your monthly payment. That's really the price of the policy. So the premium is the cost of insurance per month, quarter, or year, however you're paying. That is really the cost of your insurance. With no event. So without event. What do I mean by event? Car crash, cancer, death. Those are events, right? So this is the amount you're paying per month, year, whatever, is the premium. Now, we also talked about deductible. What was that? If you have to pay a deductible, what happened? Okay, if something happens. So it's dependent upon an event. So you get into a car wreck and you have a $1,000 deductible and there's $4,000 worth of damage. You pay $1,000, the insurance company pays $3,000. Right? So that is the deductible. It's also called co-insurance. So co-insurance, because you are partially insuring yourself, and this is amount paid by you dependent on event happening. Example, an accident, cancer, death. That's the event we're talking about in the insurance case. Yes?
So where would the copay from?
So copay, so when you have copay is a lot of times with the health insurance, but it kind of works similar to like a deductible in a way. So if you have an 80-20 plan, you're going to pay 20% of the payment and the 80% up to that out-of-pocket maximum. So you can also have a copay of, that's a flat fee of you go to a doctor's visit, you have to pay 25 bucks. The doctor actually charged 120. So you pay a fixed fee of 25 and the doctor paid some amount. So under the copay, this is generally the words we use with health for health insurance is, let's say an 80-20 policy means 80% insurance company, 20% you. Up to your out-of-pocket maximum. Okay, those are the main things I wanted for you guys for premium and deductible and thinking about the insurance policy. That's kind of the whole transfer of risk, as Abby was saying. That's exactly right. And that's the price you can pay to transfer the risk. And then your options that you have with deductible levels. The key part with the deductible as it relates to your emergency fund is that you can raise your deductible. So let me just put this last key point here for insurance as it relates to our system. If you increase your deductible, what happens to your premium? It goes down. So your monthly payment on your premium, increased deductible leads to a decrease in premium. And you can do this because of your emergency fund. So your emergency fund, kind of I think the big lesson of the insurance chapter is that is your self-insurance. So now you can use a combination of insurance that you buy from companies and you insuring yourself. That's exactly what the emergency fund was for. Okay, so chapter, I'm going to put kind of 10 and 11 together. We just got done with 12, so I was kind of saving these for the end since these were most fresh in our minds. So you got to know what the cookie jar and the coat is. There's my lousy coat. Oh, geez, that's good. Okay. So the cookie jar is your actual investments from chapter 10. 25% what? International. 25% what? Small cap. 25% what? Mid cap. And 25% what? Large cap. You have a well-diversified portfolio of mutual funds that are invested into these cookies. And then each year, you're able to put a coat around your cookies to protect them from the investment. So this is the cookies, and this is the coat. And the coat is tax benefits. And so we had our traditional IRA or 401k, 403b. So all of those were ways that you can put different coats around your cookies. And so the Roth was the other one that had a different tax treatment. So the regular 401k and IRA have the tax benefit at the front end. So this was at the buy. As you look back in your notes, you can kind of review this. So that's the tax benefit when you buy, tax benefit when you buy, and this has the tax benefit. It's tax-free at the end when you sell, is the Roth. So Roth, the benefit comes at the end. You pull out your money tax-free. IRA, you get the tax benefit today. You get your taxable income is reduced by the amount of money that you put into those investments. Okay, and then we've got our real estate chapter that we just got out of. So chapter 12, you should know the components of a mortgage. I think it's important for you to know PITI. So PITI was our principal, which is your money, interest. Those two together make up your loan payment to your bank, just for your debt alone. And then we have taxes, which is property taxes, and you have to cover the property with some insurance. So homeowners have to cover all four of those things as they consider, should I rent or should I buy? Those are the things you need. For a loan, so calculating loan payment, the three things you need are the loan amount. So I'm going to borrow $100,000. Number two, you need the interest rate. What is the bank going to charge me for this money? And number three, you need the length of the loan. So in a mortgage, if we had a $100,000 loan, an interest rate of 3%, and a 15-year loan, as Dave Ramsey recommends for our house, that's the three components you need to calculate what your loan payment is for principal and interest. So that these three things will generate this. Okay. Bring a regular old calculator to class on Monday. No phones allowed. So bring a calculator. I'll have some loaner calculators if you don't have one. But being a college student, I would try to get one. Literally, you can go to Dollar General or the dollar store and probably pick up the calculator you need for $1. So good investment long term for college is to have yourself a basic calculator, even though I know you got your phone too. It's more for class, that's it, where you might not be able to use your phone. Otherwise, I'll have some loaner calculators too.
So the final's tomorrow, isn't it?
Tomorrow, yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow at our regular class time, so we'll be in here, we'll get started. And it's gonna be, we'll spread you guys out and bring a pencil and a brain full of personal finance knowledge. See you tomorrow.